In this video, I'm going to show you why I don't think discipline means doing the hard work anymore. I think it means doing the smart work and getting more done in less time. Okay, so if you're anything like me, maybe you looked at YouTube videos where you just see all these people espouse hard work and doing more of everything, right? And I think of people like Alex Hormozy, I think of people like Jocko Willink, just people who say that you should be doing as much work as possible. You should grind yourself to the ground. And while, yes, I believe that that's true for certain things, like, business as they relate or fitness in some ways, I think that for studying and for getting good grades and just doing well in school, that this is the exact opposite mentality of what you should have. And so, as you guys know, the mission of my channel is to help students that feel like they're overwhelmed with their work achieve a better balance. And by balance, I mean they should be able to enjoy their lives in college without feeling like they have to spend all that time working and trying to get shit done. And so, doing more work may feel good for you, especially when you're starting out that journey of trying to get good grades. I know that I went through this when I was in high school, and for me, getting good grades meant that I had to put in more time. So in like maybe middle school, early high school, I would spend my time just not doing the work and I wouldn't get the grades I wanted. I'd get like C's and B's and like it'd be fine. I was kind of coasting off of my own smarts or whatever, but end of the day, like it wasn't good enough grades for what I wanted to do, right? And I was getting to a good college and that was to just prove to myself that that I could get good grades. Okay, so I remember that I would in those early days, I would just sit and not do work initially, but then I started learning about like study strategies and like watching those motivational videos where they have like these compilations of people studying for like 10 hours a day in like China or whatever, and realizing that maybe that was what I needed to get unstuck at where I was early on. And so in high school, like late high school, even a little bit of early college, my mindset was more so just doing as much work as possible and sacrificing everything else for my work. And I'm not gonna lie, like this feels really good actually. It's one thing I think where you just feel like accomplished for doing a lot of work, and it's something where you can sort of brag to other people about the amount of work you do. And so I would remember I like early in high school, or sorry, late in high school, I would just sit and be like, "Hey, I studied for 5 hours for that exam last night. What did you do?" And it felt good in the moment because I have always been a person that could just sort of persist until I get what I want or achieve what I want. And I don't know, I guess I just don't quit super easily, which is a good thing and a bad thing in certain ways. But I was like, this is working for me. I'm getting good grades now. I was getting A's, but I was starting to feel a little discontent. And this really started happening my senior year of high school because I realized that I was losing out, or I did lose out on a lot of time, partly due to COVID, but partly due to other things. I was losing out on a lot of time that I could have spent with friends or that I could have spent just doing anything else. And so I would literally spend all my time just like studying or like learning things for class or whatnot. And that took the place of, having a normal social life or um, going and exercising and getting ripped or whatever. And I think those are things that it's normal for kids to want, especially when they're younger. And I realized that I was sort of sacrificing all of this other stuff that was really important for my development just so I could get good grades. And so when I came to college and life just became more complex, you have harder classes, first of all, which was fine. Like, I still would have gotten A's in all those classes, even if I had, not decided to engage in like better study habits and just decided to brute force my way through. I know I would have gotten A's, honestly, because I know I could put in that amount of effort to do it. But when I started to come to doing clinical activities, doing research, hanging out with friends, doing clubs, exercising, just all the other important stuff that's required to live a balanced life. And I'm not saying balanced in the sense that, oh, you have to have like a work life balance or whatnot. I don't necessarily believe in that because I think you should be able to do what suits you in the season of life you're in. But having some level of just overall health in social health and physical health and mental health, and yes, in academic health as well, is really important. And that was something that took me a long time to realize. But once I started realizing it, is when I realized that discipline doesn't necessarily mean doing hard work. Okay, and I want to give a little bit of an analogy here because I think this, like hearing it this way, really helped me ingrain into my brain. So if you're going to the gym, right? Um, I don't know. I'm not an expert lifter. I like have just started. But if you're going to the gym and you see a total beginner in there, and they say, "I'm going to go to the gym every single day for the rest of my life, and I'm going to work out for at least 3 4 hours a day and do the hardest workouts possible," you would say that they're stupid, right? They're not going to get the results they want. They're not going to look bigger because A, they're probably going to get injured, or they're going to realize that it's just not possible to sustain that level when there's so many other things to do in life. And you would tell them, hey, how about you just do it 2 times a week to start? And by doing it 2 times a week, you're going to go to the gym. You're going to get buff over time because you're going to keep consistently doing the work instead of doing big bursts of work. And more importantly, you're going to get the physique you want because you have stuck with it. And I think that's a really beautiful analogy for what I'm trying to say about discipline doesn't mean doing a bunch of hard work at a time, especially if you're a student. It means being able to put in a consistent amount of work that's high intensity, but still, not taking up your entire day. And so what I mean by this is I would often just like be in that mode where I would just be like, I'm gonna go do study for 8 hours a day for 7 days for this exam. And when I started realizing that discipline isn't necessarily doing hard work, it's doing the smarter work and focusing on the outputs, is when I realized that I needed to just stop and reevaluate what I was doing. By the way, if you like unconventional study advice like this and you want more help with achieving these goals, then check out the first link in the description. It's a link to my paid study program on setting up these type of study systems and lifestyle that helps you get good grades with less effort and allow you to enjoy that life in college that everyone says they have. So again, check out that first link in the description if you're interested. Absolutely no pressure to sign up, but let's get back to the rest of the video. Okay, so what I did was what I always say. I started looking into the important study strategies, important techniques to just make myself more focused. So those are my normal things, Google Calendar, having a to-do list, doing active recall, spaced repetition, using Anki flashcards, just all those study habits that I'm sure you've seen in other places or you've seen on this channel that really helped me. But by implementing all of this, I was spending less time actually working. And by less time, I mean like I used to study maybe 6 hours a day for a bio exam in high school maybe, or even early my freshman year. I used to study for 6 hours a day for, like, 5 days straight before the exam, and I would end up getting fine grades, it'd be a B, occasionally an A, like, that was really high, but usually, like, a low A, A minus, or a B plus, right? I went from that to studying 6 hours total for a bio exam, I think my sophomore year, and getting 100 on, like, literally every single exam I took. And so that just goes to show you that at some point in your life, you can't be focused on just the amount of brute force you put in. You have to start focusing on what you can improve about your efficiency, about any part of your workflow, and how that can help you achieve better results by being more efficient. And now I've started to focus more on the outputs of what I'm doing. So instead of focusing on the inputs, which I think is important when you're starting to learn how to study and get discipline and all that, I've started to shift towards focusing on the outputs. So for me, it's more important that instead of focusing on, hey, I only study for 2 hours a day, I only study for 2 hours today, I should beat myself up over it. I started to focus more on, I studied 2 hours today, but I got an A on my exam afterwards. And that's really important to me because it means that I can study for 2 hours and I can still get an A on an exam because I realize that I've done the most efficient work possible and the most mentally draining, intensive work possible in a short amount of time. And it goes back to that saying, which says that productivity is equal to the amount of time you spend working, but also times the amount of focus. So if you focus more on one task intensely, you apply all of these amazing study strategies that we've discussed, active recall, spaced repetition, using Anki, um, getting yourself focused by doing a morning routine, Google Calendar, all that stuff, then that will greatly decrease the amount of time you need to spend in order to get the same amount of work done as someone who spends 10 hours on something and only has a focus level of 1. So if you have a focus level of 10 or 9 or 8 when you're studying, then you're going to achieve all your results a lot faster. And in this way, for some of you guys that are a little more advanced in your studying journey, you really have to realize that discipline doesn't mean doing the hard work, it means doing the smart work and getting more out of what you put into it. So I hope I've convinced you now that being disciplined doesn't necessarily mean doing more hard work. It just means doing the smarter inputs and finding the best ways to study so you can achieve the grades you want. If any of this helps you out, please leave a comment down below. Leave a like to the channel as well. Ask any questions you have on what I mean, or if there's other ways you think about this. I'd really love to know that. Again, check out that first link in the description if you're interested in getting a paid study program that will help you set all this up without having to, do this all yourself. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.